Hi everyone, this is the second blog that I've done. The last blog talked about my RAF life, and after I left the RAF I joined Leicestershire Police. One very important thing I forgot is that I'm married and I've got children. Wife will kill me. I've been married actually 4 times, twice to the same person, and never found true happiness. To be honest, whilst being married before, I never really understood what true happiness was until I met Sandra 5 years ago, and she has just made my life amazing. Never met anybody like her. Truly wonderful, caring, etc. She'll kill me for saying this, but she is, and that's the truth. I have 3 children. 2 I don't see anymore because as a result of meeting up with Sandra, they made a conscious decision to distance themselves, and with that I don't have contact with my 2 grandchildren, which was very difficult at the time, extremely difficult, and I'm sure some of you have been in that position or are going through it now. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but you have to move on. People were telling me that for 2 or 3 years, but always found it increasingly difficult. But you do, and they've got their life, and I've got mine, and I'm very happy with mine. My eldest son, Dan, stuck with us, and I'm extremely proud of what Dan does. He's a great guy. He's a gentle giant, and if you ever saw him you'd understand why. And he's brilliant. And Sandra's daughter Nikki, my stepdaughter, she is truly amazing as well, and I don't like to use the word stepdaughter. As far as I'm concerned, she's my daughter. She calls me dad usually when she wants something, a few quid, but seriously, she is more of a daughter to me than my daughter has been. So that's the family side sorted out, and I apologise for not mentioning that at first, but being new to blogs, I went off in one direction and completely forgot what I should be talking about. We left it that I joined Leicestershire Police, and I joined the police in February 1986, and I became, after the training, I became a community police officer, which, for those of you that don't know, is basically walking around a given area, usually a housing estate. And I worked Beaumont Lee's estate in Leicester. Now, in those days, Beaumont Lee's estate had a very bad reputation for crime and God knows what else. I always thought in the 7 years that I was there that the actual reputation was unjust. If something happened on Beaumont Lee's, it would be front page news, but if the same thing happened on the estate next door, it would barely get a mention. So it was living off its reputation, and I loved it. I loved mixing with the people, good, bad and indifferent, and part of my role there, I took it upon myself to go into primary schools to talk to young children about going with strangers or not going with strangers. And at that time, the resources available to us to back up what we were saying was a video. And some of you who are old enough will remember this, and it starred Pippin the dog. And the dog used to speak to its owners and the children, and it basically gave warnings about going with strangers, and it played out various scenarios. But even in those days, that video was quite dated, but that was the only resource available to teach this subject, a very important subject. One of the schools that I went into, there was a girl there called Claire, and she at the time was 9 years old, 9 and 10 years old, and she sat in on 3, 4, 5 of these talks by me about being a stranger. when she left the primary school and went up into secondary school, in her first year, unbeknown to anybody, she met a guy who befriended her, and he was 30 odd years of age and she was 12. And he slowly but surely gained her trust. And he would buy her sweets, he would buy her toys, he would invite her around to his house to watch videos or play games or whatever. But on one particular day, he invited her around and it took a sinister turn. And he tried to molest her, and she panicked and he panicked and he killed her. And the following day I came on duty, completely oblivious to this. But when I arrived at work, I was pulled to one side and asked, did I know Claire? And I said, yes, I did. And was told, and you shouldn't get personally involved, but I did, with regards to, I cared about who I spoke to and the messages that I gave. Anyway, my job that day was to go and talk to her friends in school about her movements, who she knew. And it became apparent during the course of the day that the girl, Claire, got to know this guy. To cut a long story short, on that side, the police went round to this guy's property and conducted a search, and they found he lived actually on the first floor flat, and they found that the outside on the ground behind some bushes was a body which turned out to be Claire, and it would appear that he, having killed her, then pushed her out of the kitchen window. So that was probably the worst experience of my life, and it hit me hard. I was ill, and had no end of guilt. And you're probably thinking, well, why the guilt? And the guilt was because I had taught her for 3 years about going with strangers, but that talk and the presentation and the material used, in my opinion, wasn't good enough, and it didn't give the right message. It didn't teach her not to go with strangers. So I set out on a very long campaign to get this material changed and updated. And I felt there was a need for a new video that created a real life event rather than a talking dog, which is unreal. At least I've never seen one. And I was, well, I had no support from senior officers. They felt I was wasting my time and that I would never get it done. And even if I did, it would cost too much money and the police wouldn't pay for it anyway. So I've never been one to be, to give up, never. And I've always been the sort of person that would try and do his best. So I set out to try and get this video done. I had some ideas, I wrote them down on paper, and the one thing that kept standing out to this video, the content of this video, should be Claire's story. It's real, it's happened, and I felt that that should happen. I contacted various people, got very little out of them. But one company that I did contact used to be called Central TV and Central Television. And I contacted them and told them what had happened, and they arranged for me to go to Birmingham to meet them. And I met with a director, a film director, and a couple of other people. And we spoke about Claire and what had happened. And I showed them the video that was available at that time, starring Pippin the dog. And it was a very good meeting, because they saw straight away that, like me, there was a need to change this. And they agreed to put something together. What happened over the coming months was various scripts were put together, and they settled on basically Claire's story, and they filmed the new video in exactly the same area as where Claire lived. And I was on that video and I played myself. And it was very, very difficult to reenact basically what had happened. Very difficult. But I kept going because there was a good ending coming up. So we did this video, and I went down to Birmingham again to help watch them, not help them, I haven't got that technology, but to watch them edit it. And it was shown on Channel 4's education programs, and it was shown for 2 or 3 years. And also copies of the video were made available to the public, to schools, to police forces throughout the country. The highlights probably of that making that video was that it was nominated for Best Education Programme by the Royal Television Society, and it won. And we received a lovely plaque, which was kept by Central Television, which is fair enough because they put all the money into it. And I received commendation by the police, and it was just an amazing result. It sounds like it all happened in a few minutes from start to finish, but trust me, it took 3 years to get it done, and with nobody even at home at that time really supporting me. But I wasn't going to let it go. I'm like a dog with a bone sometimes, you know. And it was done, and it was a success. And I'd like to think that I played a small part in helping other kids not go down the same route as Claire. So the impact, though, left its scars, and probably still carry them now. And what I'll do is talk about after I left the police, and what I did after I left, and bring my life really up to date. 57 years, and I've only done about 16 minutes of blogs, but you don't want to hear every single nitty gritty. And maybe as the blogs go on, I'll pull out certain funny stories and whatever. But the idea of these blogs at the moment is to bring you up to speed of who I am and what I am. And I hope that you find this interesting. I'm actually starting to enjoy it. It's a strange thing, but we'll talk next time. But the next time we'll be talking about my time as an antisocial behaviour officer at Blakeney District Council.